Welcome to an invitation to Sisterhood. We want you to join us on a journey as we discuss everyday issues affecting our lives. Women in the Bible and of Christian history continue to have an impact on the world, even years after their deaths. We can learn so much from them. They are sisters of inspiration, and we're all sisters in Christ. Today, we're talking about a call to trust and the Divine Mercy Center. Our guest today is Catherine Lanny. Our saint of inspiration for this show is Mother Mary, Our Lady of Seven Sorrows. I'm joined by my co-host, ECRC Director Patrice Buna and Adora Ibrahim from the Benedicta Leadership Institute for Women. So A Call to Trust. This is the book, ladies. Have you read it?
I have.
You read it a few years ago, right?
I did. It was super powerful, very impactful, and I couldn't help but, when I knew that we were interviewing Catherine, think about, the whole relationship with the Archbishop, of Detroit, and how that all came in, and just listening to God, when you're praying, and especially with some of the things that we face in the church, and it was pretty profound.
That's what I want to talk to Catherine about, is about really listening to God's call.
Yes.
And prayer and how to hear His voice. I remember a few years back, I started saying a prayer, God, bring the people in my life that are going to lead me in the direction you want me to go.
Yes.
And I remember ECRC, that was like one of the first groups that came into my life, and I knew it was an answer. I knew God was saying, okay, you want me to lead you? Go to these people. Go to ECRC. And I started becoming more involved in Ave Maria radio and Catholic radio. And then a few years later, I started saying the prayer, God, bring the clients in my life you want me to serve.
Yes.
And the Divine Mercy Center came into my life last year, and I really, truly believe that was divine intervention.
Absolutely.
That was a client that God wanted me to serve. And so that prayer has helped me, I believe, listen to God's call.
Yes.
It's just by asking that.
Yes.
And it's been very powerful in my life. Now it's kind of like a sense of relief. It's like, okay, God, it's on you. Yeah, I put that prayer out on you. You tell me where to go.
Yeah, that trust, the whole theme of trust is a simple one, but such a challenging one.
Yes.
Because trust is essentially so similar to like surrender at the same time too.
Yeah.
Because you can't trust without letting go of some of that control. Like I think about trusting even in like a husband or a friend relationship. Those trusts that takes me to say, okay, I'm putting something in your arms. I'm making myself vulnerable to you. And so it's powerful.
It's a whole process of detachment, from our will and seeking out, okay, Lord, what is it that you really want for my life? And, it's funny because when you do let go, it is scary. And God takes you in directions that sometimes you wouldn't have dreamed, I think we can all say that for ourselves. You start a path in life, I'm going to go to college and do this and do that and get married, blah, blah, blah. And then, there's that saying, if you ever want to hear God laugh, go ahead and make plans,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's like when you really listen to Our Father, like I started to really listen and meditate on every line, and Thy will be done is probably the hardest, because it's like, wait a minute, what is that going to be?
Yeah.
Because I have like another idea in my head.
Yeah.
And
I think I was talking to someone recently about that. He's like, having trouble making a decision, and we were like praying together about it. And I said, and I'd read it recently, and it's just said, when you go to prayer, and I think people we're going to talk about how God spoke to Catherine, but it isn't like this booming word. It isn't, like written out. All of a sudden you find this piece of paper with God's word on it. Oh God, if it was only could be just an email, right?
Yeah.
It's more of just like, it's your own voice, and it's like a knowing. But I was telling this guy, I said, whatever you're deciding between two things, when you pray with one, if it's the right thing, you're going to feel peace. And if the other one is giving you some sort of angst or frustration, that's not the right thing, because God is peace. And so that's a way too, if you're discerning between two things, is you'll just feel at peace with the one that God wants you to do.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. The fruits of the Spirit,
Yeah.
Joy, peace. And then, sometimes when you're thinking about other things and you're anxious and, you're just like nervous and you're not ready, take more time. Take more time with God. It's hard for us because we're so impatient. Sometimes we want answers like that. We want to know directions that we're going in. Okay, Lord, why haven't you told me? And, he's always doing three things. He's protecting us, he's purifying us, and he's preparing us. And that all comes with patience. You can pray for patience, but it's only through experience, that you're able to obtain
That's not one of my
patience.
virtues.
Same. He's been purifying me
pray
my
for that all
entire
the time,
life.
Yeah.
I think that your prayer earlier, and you said you were asking God to bring into your life something
people,
good.
yeah.
And so I think ECRC has been that for a lot of people in our community, but wherever people are watching this, whatever, it might be a friend, it might be another lay ministry, it might be a parish group.
Yeah.
I think that kind of thing is what we all need. We can't do this journey alone.
It's so important that you say that, because God does speak through others, through groups, through programs, through our sisterhood, through whatever. Sometimes, we joke that, oh, why can't we just get a text message? But sometimes we do through another person.
Yeah.
And you know what? That is God, too, communicating something to you. And so we just have to be open to where the Holy Spirit is leading us, and to always have the ears of our soul and the eyes of our soul open to what God is telling us.
In the same way, I think, to be careful of surrounding ourselves with the wrong people.
Of course.
Because then what messages
Sure.
are you going to get? What
Yes.
influences are you going to get?
Yes.
Where are they going to tell you to go? What decisions?
Yes.
Like, I've heard someone say that, I was fighting with my husband and someone encouraged me to get a divorce. And I'm like, who are you surrounding yourself with? If someone should be encouraging you to heal and to forgive and to, move
And more
forward
so
in
with our
Moses.
children, because they're more vulnerable. And the less you're
Absolutely.
grounded you are in your faith, the more you're apt to listen to the wrong messages.
Right.
And Catherine, as we'll find out when we talked to her, she had a very profound message from
Yes.
God. And it was in a very trying time, life-threatening time in her life, and we're going to hear her testimony. But people don't have to think it has to be this profound, huge, mountain-moving type of call. Sometimes it's a little message. It's a little thing to do, like even just smile at somebody. You know what I mean? I felt compelled sometimes just to say hello to a stranger in the grocery store. I don't know why, but it's like I'll just say hello, and I'm like, well, maybe they just needed somebody to say hello.
You know, it's that spiritual motherhood that we as women have. You felt compelled to say hello, and that's because whatever was in your heart, whatever that empathy is, that compassion, you look upon these people, whether they're older than us, younger than us, we're spiritual mothers. And I think about the Blessed Mother, especially Our Lady of Sorrows, and her 7 sorrows. And there's one thing that I was praying with in this month, and the particular one of her knowing, when Simeon prophesied over her son, that her son was going to die this gruesome death. The thing is with us women and us human beings is that we never know what's going to happen to us tomorrow or next week or to our loved ones. And God in his infinite wisdom knows that we could not handle to see in the future. But the Blessed Mother, because she's the Blessed Mother, that was one of the sorrows that was given to her. But I can't imagine knowing that from the time I was looking at my son's face until it actually happened, what was going to happen.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so hard. And then we picked Mother Mary 7 Sorrows because of the Divine Mercy Center.
That's right.
And Catherine's ministry and what they've done. And she can elaborate more for us on that.
Yeah.
But and to bind your, that was really tough for me. That one is to bind my sorrow with that of Christ.
Yes.
And then I think of Mary all the time too. It's like, how did you do that? How did you watch your son do that?
And when we watch it, we always, because we're such a visual people, that the Passion of Christ.
Yes.
The parts that made me cry the most was when Our Lady was crying.
Yeah.
And when she was, I'm like,
Yeah.
she's watching her son, that's more powerful than I think any part in the movie.
Yeah.
Was just to see her sorrows. And I always imagine the image of her with her heart and all the swords, and it's heartbreaking.
I never apologized to Christ more than after that movie. I walked out and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I really am. I'm really sorry.
I'll tell you, after I had my first child is when every Lent, when, the Stations of the Cross would come around, I could never see them again through the eyes of just a person. I saw them through the eyes of I saw what he suffered through the eyes of his mother. And I'll tell you, people look at me sometimes like I'm crazy because I weep, for what he went through. And I weep for all of our children in this crazy world. And I thank God there's places like the Divine Mercy Center,
I know.
that are popping up, where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more.
The more we bring people to Christ, we always talk about that, if we could just touch one person's life, and change them, we're doing good.
And I think it helps to have Mary as an example, to give us that solace that we need sometimes, that consolation when you're struggling through something. Look at her. She made it through. She survived. Yeah. How did she get through what none of us, God willing, will ever go through, to watch our child go through what she watched her child go through? And we can unite any of our sufferings, whether it's, I haven't slept in a couple nights, I got young kids at home, or about to go through labor, whatever it is, we can unite that to Our Lady, because she suffered too. And I think it's beautiful in God's wisdom that He gave us that example to comfort us.
Well, we're going to continue this conversation and hear more about binding our suffering and talking to God with Catherine Lanny about the Divine Mercy Center and a call to trust. Stay with us, everyone. We'll be right back. Welcome back to An Invitation to Sisterhood. We're talking about the book, A Call to Trust. We're also talking about the Servants of Jesus, the Divine Mercy Center. And the foundress is with us, Catherine Lanny. Catherine, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
So I've had the honor and pleasure of working with the Divine Mercy Center. What a beautiful place. I've also read the book. And your testimony is actually quite long. You could tell in about an hour or so, but we don't have that much time. So give us a brief synopsis of how this even all came about.
Well, it was on my deathbed. I had just delivered my 4th child by cesarean section, and something went drastically wrong. I just, was overwhelmed with everyone around my bed telling me I wasn't going to make it. We had specialists in the process of doing the C-section. An intern stepped in to assist the doctor. And, I just remember my doctor saying, "Oh my God, you should never have done that." And then it went haywire, everything, it was just crazy. People rushing in and out of the operating room and doing all kinds of whatever doctors do. And finally, my doctor said, "Catherine, you're not going to make it. In fact, it'll be a miracle if you make it through the next hour or two, maybe. So I want you to make arrangements now while you're still coherent and awake with your husband and family for your children." I had 2 children at home, and the newborn in the nursery I didn't even have a chance to hold. My first child was a son, died during childbirth. So that's all I was bombarded with, all this, you're not going to make it, you're not going to make it, and hurry up, what do you want to do, what do you want to do? And all I could think of, amazingly, was, where's God? How can this be happening? Because I had had 4 C-sections. I knew the process. Right. I had everything under control. I went in with 2 luggages full of, nightgown for every day, my hot rollers, everything, everything was under control. So I couldn't understand why this was happening. But my final thought was, where is God? Where's God? And so there was so much activity happening, on the table, and trying to get doctors in and specialists. And I was only 29, so, the last thing they wanted was a dead mom, God forbid. But that's what was happening. So I was hemorrhaging so profusely that as the doctors and nurses were coming in and out of my room, literally they were slipping in the blood. That's how bad. So they were giving me transfusions in the midst of all of it just to keep me alive. And then at some point, intermittently, I'd be, alone for probably, it felt like a long time, but probably only seconds maybe. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't think about any arrangements or anything like that. All I could think about was, where's God? And I just started to pray with all of my heart and soul, Our Father, Hail Mary, Our Father, Hail Mary, repeatedly. And then the doctors would come in again, and people and whatever, they were doing. But repeatedly, the negativity of hearing, you're not going to make it, you're not going to make it. But something deep inside of me kept striving. So yes, it's a very long story,
It's a beautiful one. That's why you have to read the book.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful story.
It brought me back to, the deathbed of my son, died during childbirth. And so going back and forth, there was that threat as well. So this darkness came over me, this terrible darkness, like nothing else I ever experienced in my life. And it was fear, the spirit of fear.
Right.
And, I never, ever, ever in my life experienced anything like that black fear. And so in the midst of that, I had a memory, 2 memories. And one was of my grandmother and one was of my father, my paternal grandmother. And it was, every year she used to take us to Cary, Ohio, my brother and I, everybody, for the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin. So, we would, she would go over there the day before and she would prepare. And it was a beautiful experience year after year after year. But this one year really stood out in my mind on my deathbed. And that was the year that I saw my grandma cry. She, just a little short Sicilian woman, tough as can be.
Of course.
Never saw her
Tough
cry
as
in
nails.
my lifetime, and I caught her, turning her head because the tears were coming down and she didn't want us kids to see it. And I wouldn't let her go, and I said, Grandma, why are you crying? No, she would just ignore it. No. I said, Grandma, I saw you crying. Why were you crying? And then she did, I think she was just so vulnerable in that moment. And she just said, your aunt is very sick. Her oldest daughter was very sick. She had kidney failure. She needed a transplant. One kidney was already gone. The other one was almost non-functioning. So anyway, the long and the short of it was that we went to Cary, Ohio, and my grandmother, upon entering the vestibule, dropped to her knees. And she started to crawl, crying to the Blessed Virgin, imploring the Blessed Virgin for her intercession for her daughter. I will never forget that because there was no one else in the whole basilica there kneeling and doing what my grandma was doing. So my brother and I was like, Grandma, get up. Grandma, why are you doing that?
But what a powerful image.
Never forgot it.
Yeah.
Never forgot it. Yeah. And so she continued all the way up, and my aunt received a miracle.
Wow.
And that's what you were thinking about on your deathbed?
On my deathbed. Yeah. And the other was of my father. The second memory on my deathbed was of my father kneeling in the backyard before the statue of the Blessed Mother.
Oh, yes.
So he had a very strong devotion to Our Lady, and we grew up with that. We grew up seeing that. But I never saw him early in the morning. It was early one morning where I was a little girl and I had to go potty, and so I went across the kitchen to get to the bathroom, and we have a big picture window there. And I just happened, as I was passing by, to glance and see my dad out in the middle of the backyard, way early in the morning. And I was just taken by that. And he had finished, he got up, and he made the sign of the cross, and then he caught me looking at him in the window. And he blew me a kiss, and he waved as he went off to work. Yeah. So when he came home that night, I said to him, Daddy, I never knew that you would kneel in the middle of the back. Aren't you afraid that neighbors are going to see you standing out back here in front of a statue of Blessed Mother? Right. And he goes, oh no, I do that every day before I go to work, and I ask God that I'm leaving, that my family be taken care of, and to bless the family. It was profound. The impact of my father praying was profound.
Yeah.
The whole thing is like, I tear. I've heard her testimony like 4 times now. And I've read the book, and it still makes me cry.
The incredible thing that was happening to you in those moments was that, that memory wasn't just a coincidence, those 2 particular memories.
No.
And that was whatever, that was the voice of God inside of you saying, don't give up. Don't listen to what they're saying to you, Catherine. Right. This is not over yet.
That's right.
I'm in charge.
And I think sometimes we need the extra nudge, because you already were praying in Our Father and Hail Mary, and you're praying those words, but God needed to show you, look at these people in your life that were also a witness. Yes. And they were witnessing to Our Lady, and they received miracles from Our Lady. So follow their example and trust Our Lady.
That's right.
Which
You're
I think
exactly
is powerful.
right. And you were saying earlier about how God speaks to us in different ways.
That's right.
That was another way of God speaking to me in my moment on my deathbed.
Absolutely.
100%. So that gave me a renewed courage in the light of that horrible darkness to break through, and just with renewed faith and trust that my grandma, I mean, nobody could make her do anything she didn't want to do. Nobody, you know. And I know you guys know. What grandmas. Okay. Yeah.
Italians and Chinese are very similar.
Oh, very much, you know. So, and my father, you know, big guy, truck driver, business owner, you know, for him to kneel down like that, nobody made those two people do anything they didn't want to do. So I knew this was a great act of faith. And interiorly in my heart, I started to implore God in the same, in that vein of that deep faith. And within moments, Our Lady appeared next to me. Wow. And I just started to beg her. You know, with everything, every breath I had, I was started to beg her, which wasn't a lot of breath, by the way. And so she was just radiant. She was just beautiful. She stood there looking at me. And so I kept begging her because I expected her to, you know, kind of like levitate or fly or give me her rosary or something profound. You know, she was there, and these are the things we saw on TV and we learn and we hear. And she never did any of that. And so I just thought she was, you know, she was not listening to me. Right. And so finally, the third time, I cried out to her with my last. And I said to her, I too lost my only son. And although I didn't see him crucified through a horrific death that you had to watch, it was my only son. And I can't have any more children. And she bent down to me and she touched my arm. And you know, it was like for I don't know how much time, and it wasn't a lot, but you know, for a moment I was in heaven with her. You know, I was just everything went away, no more pain, nothing. And she just smiled at me, and I could feel. I thought that was my healing. I didn't realize until a few years later that just the mere appearance of Blessed Mother, I was already healed. Right. She was just saying, it's okay, it's done, it's done. And I didn't know that. I was directing a retreat a few years later on Divine Mercy. And in the midst of this, I remember the moment, in the midst of this, and I was not even talking about the Blessed Mother. In the midst of that, talking about Divine Mercy, this grace came to me of knowledge and understanding that at the mere moment of her being in my room, standing right there, her mere appearance, I was already healed. Wow. That's how I knew that. Up until that time, I thought it was Blessed Mother touched me and healed me, but she was just touching me to do what mothers do. Yeah, when you're, you know, to console. You. You know, a mother can't hear her child cry, and you know there's different cries, right? Oh, yes. There's a cry of like, okay, get up, you're fine, right. You know, everything's fine. You know, you just want an extra kiss or something. Yeah. Then there's that cry that your world stops, and you just got to be there. Yeah. And nobody else can do that job except you. And that's what Blessed Mother was, that compassionating with me in that moment. And so from that point on, it was like waterworks stopped, and it was a turnaround. But what was hilarious was my doctor came in, I'll never forget, you know, and he's freaked out.
That's what I was going to ask you. Please tell me what the secular people said.
Oh, he was, and for a couple of days, he slept in the room next to mine. He wouldn't leave me. He was so, but he was just so freaked out. It was just like such a mishap, you know. And so he came in, and he's beyond himself, and you know, nobody has any answers of what they're going to do about this. There's no hope. There's no hope. And I said to him, "I'm healed." "Oh no, I'm healed." And he did this. He did, "Yes, honey. Yes, honey." And then they start talking about whatever, like think what you want, because you're dying, you know.
Yeah, he's probably thinking
I said,
she's lost
no.
her mind. It's,
exactly.
You know.
I said, no. Blessed Mother was here, and she touched me. I'm healed. I'm healed. So my mother was standing beside him. I will never forget this, because in her purse she had this little box of all these holy medals that, you know, her mother gave her, she collected, and she just had like a million safety pins, and she started putting them all over. And then she turns to the doctor and she pushes him and she says, "Listen, my daughter doesn't lie. If she said Blessed Mother healed her, look, she's so happy. Blessed Mother healed her, you know. Like, you have to believe her." So it was an amazing experience. It was an amazing experience.
It's just beautiful. And, going back to that, your paternal grandmother and your father and what Patrice said about being witnesses, that really, we never know who's watching and the witness that we have and the impact we have. Can you imagine if they didn't do that and you didn't have that memory as a child? You know what I mean? The witnesses that were how we witness to other people and just in our actions every day. Right. And that leads me to the work that you're doing at the Divine Mercy Center. And you'll never know, Catherine. We'll never know the lives we touch, right?
Until
but
you
every
get to
day,
heaven, God willing.
until you get to heaven. And the people that come to your center are impacted. So tell us about how the center came about. We know you wrote the book and that's your testimony, but more came out of this miracle. And you are the foundress of the Divine Mercy Center. So tell us about that.
Well, first I would just like to state that it's not my center.
Okay, yeah.
When people say that, it's like there's just absolutely no way I could do this.
Yeah. Right.
So I always say everything here belongs to the Lord.
Sure.
This is your Father's house. So as the Blessed Mother started, pulling back, I could feel that she was leaving, and I just remember not wanting her to go.
Of course.
I just didn't want that to end. And I had to say something, But I can't even tell you interiorly what I was feeling. Just like, how could you be thankful enough?
Right.
Yes.
What could I say that would impress her?
Sure.
Yeah. And so I, from the depths of my being, from my spirit, because my head wasn't thinking like that, I just wanted Mama to stay.
Yes.
And so from the depths of my interior, of my being, my spirit, I said to her, Blessed Mother, someday I'll do something good for Jesus. And so, but then, I started thinking, well, okay, I'm going to teach catechism as soon as I get on my feet. And first thing, we'll have Mass said in order, Holy Mass said in thanksgiving for my miracle. And we'll, from now on, pray the rosary together and all of these things. And I'll be good.
Yeah.
No.
God had another plan.
God had another plan.
He
God
was
had
chuckling
another plan.
up there, like I said
He
earlier,
was.
going,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, Catherine, sweetheart, just wait."
Just wait. Just wait.
Yeah.
But again, my life did change, and the life in my family changed, and people around started changing. And it was a very natural evolving that took place. It wasn't, I went through some quirky things, like, I had dressed like Holly Hobb because now I had to be holy and stuff. But, Blessed Mother kind of straightened me up on a few things there. And, and who do I serve, God or my husband and my children?
Right.
Who comes first? I'm supposed to. So there was a lot of, and it was good. It was a healthy tension, but needed to be, straightened out. And Our Lady came to me again in the midst of all of that, of trying so hard to be good at everything. And she said to me, your primary vocation must always come first. Your primary vocation must always come first, because if we are honoring our primary vocation, which was for me marriage and children, sure. I am honoring God. And I will go to heaven, God willing, because of that covenant that I made with God in matrimony.
That's something that Adora has shared with me a few years ago, because same thing when I was young and single and I served all the time, mm-hmm. and then to come to a place where you have to serve your husband and your children and yes. not serve in like this, but just, I need to be present to them and
right.
minister to them. Like both of your memories were from family,
right?
Yes.
And
absolutely.
So then that just further, reaffirms that. But I think it's important for us to know that we do serve the Lord, but
yes.
what is our primary vocation? Can't say it enough.
And you don't have to choose,
No.
Mm-hmm. If we're attentive to God and to our family, according to whatever our state is, He opens up the pockets of time, and there's never a time. It changes as you get older and the kids
there's a
grow.
reason and a season.
Exactly.
Why you do, this
Exactly.
thing 5 years ago
Right.
versus today.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
exactly
as a
right.
married couple, we're called to bring our spouse to heaven.
Absolutely.
I mean, so that's part of your vocation. That's
Yes.
a big responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Is that we have that responsibility to help each other get to heaven and our children.
Yes. And that wasn't so easy
No.
for me.
Yeah.
Same.
My
all of
husband
us.
was not on board with this at all. I mean, he loved God. We would go to Mass regularly, but he's very, very private. And we had 3 daughters. And so he absolutely forbid me to talk about God, because he said, if you get up and you talk about God, nobody will marry our daughters. Nobody's going to marry our daughters. And so it was, every time I would get up and speak, God gave me that grace. You can't not talk about a healing, a miraculous healing like that. And so he would have one foot out the door and one foot in the door, because he was afraid that, he says somebody's going to hurt you or something, and I have to be there. But in the meantime, God was converting him to a deeper conversion, a faithful husband, father and whatnot, but just protecting. He felt he had to protect, and it was like as I was going out, he was struggling to keep me in and safe, and the family safe and whatnot, but he couldn't stop it. And what really converted him down the road was when we had the first Divine Mercy Center. And, there was all kinds of different kinds of light bulbs and switch boxes and things that I had no clue about. And it's like, honey, I need your help with this, or I can get on the ladder and try to get up on the ceiling. It's like, don't you even think about it. You're too clumsy for stuff. I'll take care of that, So he would be over there. And then women would go up to him and say, oh, Michele, what could I do to have such a faithful husband like you? What could I do to encourage my husband to be holy like you? And such, a wonderful support to your wife. But then he would hear their stories, and then other men would, men and women, it would go both ways. My husband or my wife is not as faithful. What do we do? How do I do this, So it was a challenge, but it evolved by God's grace, and we didn't give up. And
I think the beauty of that, too, is the fact that by doing what you were called to do each day, serving through your vocation of marriage and being a mother, that you were actually testifying by that in itself. Our lives are a testimony. Sometimes they say the only Bible someone will ever see is the way you live your life.
That's right.
And so whether your husband knew it or not, it's funny because I like to think of Our Lady lassoing the guys with her rosary.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because they're a little more difficult to get. Yeah. So.
But there are women too. It's not just husbands. I know plenty of men that suffer that their wives, feel like they're being robbed when their husband wants to go and have a holy hour or devote themselves in some way to the church, by volunteering.
Right.
So it's a challenge, and again, pushing on, pressing on.
Yeah.
Catherine, you have this still very devout and strong conversation with God, I want to say. He speaks to you in prayer all the time. You take everything to prayer. Yeah. And for people watching, I want to know, they don't have to have gone through what you did.
No.
To have that prayer life with God. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. But how can you, or what can you say to people watching about the importance of listening to God and what He wants for you?
What happened to me was supernatural. Mm-hmm. That was something, but for the glory of God, for His purpose and His reason. And, these many years later, 20-something years later, we see, His call in our times for His divine mercy, for this place of peace and refuge where we have prayer consistently throughout the week, where people can come to any time of the day and oftentimes at night to have prayer for healing. It's a very normal and natural thing that God does with His people to communicate. And we've already mentioned a few different ways. Right. God will often in our prayer time speak to us in a word, in the Bible, through other people, through a divine inspiration. And in my conversation with the Lord when He appeared to me in 1994, 92, He would say things to me audibly, and then at other times He would communicate without saying anything, and I would talk back to Him without talking. So God communicates in spirit, and He does that with everyone. He does that. So what I would say is there are some blockages, if you will, if you're not going to Holy Mass or reconciliation, and especially reconciliation. He calls it the tribunal of His mercy for a good reason. Right. Because there's just something very holy and special about a soul approaching that confessional. It's so humbling, and it's like saying, you're God and I'm not, and I need you. And He can't deny us because his heart, Our Lady told me that, his heart is so filled and full of love that he will not deny us. So any soul that approaches him for help in that sacrament, and then after, our hearts are nice and clean, we receive the body, blood, and soul and divinity of Jesus, we put ourselves, by God's grace, in the best possible place before God to receive and to receive and to receive. I can tell that when almost immediately, when I'm praying with somebody, if they're away from the sacraments.
Of course.
Because it's like the prayer just hits a wall. Yeah. And so I don't know what God thinks about that. He never said. But I take it, I look at it, my simple prayer that's not going to do a whole lot, I look at that as a prep of an opportunity because there's an intimacy in prayer. When you're with somebody and they ask you, please, I'm going through this, would you pray for me or pray with me? And so when you're doing that, it's intimate, there's that spirit to spirit. And so it's a beginning. And so it's in that intimacy that I will say, I just have a very strong sense as I've been praying that you've been away from the sacraments. And there's really nothing I can do except to say to you, run.
That's right. Yeah.
Run, because what I can do for you is so minuscule compared to what Jesus in the sacrament of reconciliation and Eucharist. He invented those, if you will, while he was here on the earth.
It's
for
the
us,
healing
it's tangible.
mechanism. It's the healing mechanism.
And healing, it's everything.
Yes, and
it's
I
everything.
think a lot of times, when people approach the confessional, they're intimidated because they're like, oh no, I have to go tell them what I did and da-da-da. But it's not like that. It's like if we messed up with our own parents and we're having a conversation, imagine, when we were little, or sometimes you fall off a bike and your knees are gushing and, your dad picks you up and he just wants to clean it off and, make everything better and give you a hug and say, okay, don't worry, go off.
Yep.
So if people only knew the mercy of our Father in heaven, they
and
wouldn't
we will
be
never
afraid.
know that.
No.
We will never comprehend. We could never comprehend that.
No, but confession gives us all the do-over. We want do-overs in life.
Yes.
There's really no true do-over, but with confession, there is a do-over. It's like, okay, I messed up, and I'm going to move on, and I'm going to try not to do that again.
And the graces that come from it give us that strength to not continue and continue. Because sometimes, you commit that one sin, you're like, okay, well, I'm already in the state of sin, and then it can become a snowball, and then that I can imagine those walls.
Right. It does become.
It puts up walls to everything.
Correct.
Everying you say and do.
To our
It
heart,
does,
our
because
mind.
Those venial sins or whatever build.
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah.
So how did you make the jump? So if Our Lady appeared to you, how did you make the jump from that to divine mercy?
Well, just before we go on, I just would like to say baptism, of course,
Yes,
gives us that number one do-over. But Divine Mercy Sunday.
Yeah.
On Divine Mercy Sunday.
Which
that's
is very
like big do-over.
And yes, and it's big at the Divine Mercy Center. We have a couple minutes
huge.
left of this segment with you, Catherine, but going to Patrice's question and tying in the Divine Mercy Center, how did that, go ahead, Patrice.
So why is it important for people to have the devotion to the Divine Mercy, and where did your inspiration come to start a whole center based on just that?
Well, the inspiration came from Jesus Christ. The Lord asked at this place of refuge, where the sacrament of reconciliation and Eucharist, which he called the two rivers. And so that was his request. So that was easy, because it was not easy. But that part of it was clear.
Right.
I didn't have to think, or even though I tried going all over Michigan to find this where two rivers met, never happened. Drove my husband
in the Middle
crazy.
East, it's where Chaldeans originated. There's two rivers, right?
The Tigris and the Euphrates.
Yes.
Yep.
So couldn't find it anywhere. But here, come to find out, there at one time literally were two rivers under the Divine Mercy Center where it is.
Wow.
Where it is now, Catherine?
In Clinton Township.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? First, it was inspired by Jesus Christ. That's, he appeared asking for that. And then, what was your second question? What did you ask me the second?
Why that devotion? Why is that devotion important for people to?
Wow.
Should we have a whole other segment on just that?
That's huge. And there is, but you have to understand simply one thing. Nothing is happenstance.
Right.
God brought this into our millennium for a good reason, for the atrocities that aching mankind is suffering. And Divine Mercy is God. It's Jesus Christ. But who knows about it, he told St. Faustina. Who knows about Divine Mercy Sunday or Divine Mercy? So it was a call from Jesus Christ, from God himself, for our times. And it's powerful. It's life-changing. It's a 6-minute, 7-minute prayer that transforms us to live a merciful life. And we can. It's very doable.
You mentioned Divine Mercy Sunday, and some people have never participated in Divine Mercy Sunday, don't even know what that is. So for our viewers, can you explain that and what you do at the center at Divine Mercy Sunday?
Yes. So it's a big feast day at the center for good reason. On Divine Mercy Sunday, anyone who will avail themselves to receive Holy Communion and, of course, the Sacrament of Reconciliation within their Easter duty will be completely clear of any sin that they've ever created or committed in their lifetime. And not only the sin, no reparations necessary. Wow. It's like your baptism.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
So, I mean, talk about a do-over.
Yes.
Divine Mercy Sunday is the massive do-over. But it's, and I explain it like, your children are playing outside and playing baseball, and the ball goes through your neighbor's window, so you go over there and you apologize. Well, that's not enough. You still have to repair that window. So you have to either, you have to work that off somehow, do, chores, and get that window replaced, and it's cost. That's kind of, in a simple way, reparation. Yeah. But on Divine Mercy Sunday, God says no reparation is necessary. You're clean, go forward.
That's incredible. I remember
it's the Sunday after Easter.
It's the Sunday after Easter, so we have confessions. We're really trying to educate people to get the Sacrament of Reconciliation before Mercy Sunday. Right. Because it puts such a stress on our priests that are limited.
Yes.
So go before, and as long as you're in the state of grace, go ahead and receive Holy Communion.
So was Divine Mercy Sunday, for people to understand, was it revealed through St. Faustina? Was that explained through St. Faustina?
From Jesus to St. Faustina. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Catherine, before we let you go, there's so much, a wealth of information. I really encourage everybody to get her book, A Call to Trust, and visit the Divine Mercy Center in Macomb Township in Southeast Michigan here. It's a beautiful center. But what would you like to leave our viewers with here?
Never give up. Never give up. There's always hope. I don't care how dark the day looks or what the situation is. God is alive, and he's never stopped speaking to his people. Our Lady is constantly interceding, compassionating with her children. We always, always have a reason to have great hope. Nothing's over until God says, come home. And that's it. And we all want to go there one day.
Yes.
Anyway, so,
just trying to make it to purgatory there, Catherine.
And we got to aim for heaven in case we miss.
That's right.
Yeah, thank you so much for being with us and sharing this beautiful story.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank
In
you
God's
so much.
ministry.
Thank you for your fiat.
Yes, thank you too. It's a beautiful ministry that you have.
Yeah, thank you. Stay with us, everyone. We're going to wrap this up and continue our conversation. Don't leave yet. We'll be right back with our pledges. Stay with us, everyone. And welcome back to an invitation to sisterhood. What an amazing conversation. We could have talked to Catherine for hours.
Yes, I could have listened to her for hours. I feel like I didn't even want to talk because I just wanted to listen. Yeah. She was powerful.
Yes, I mean,
amazing.
I can't recommend her book enough to people. And if you have an opportunity to hear her testimony, because she does give her testimony, which is about an hour really, it's just so beautiful and so profound. And we needed a Kleenex box on the show, you guys.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Where is the Kleenex as I was dabbing all my tears? But
solid tears. I mean, I have an excuse, but I don't know about you.
No, but honestly, she is just a walking testimony of trust and surrender.
I was just going to say that, like when you said thank you for your fiat, I'm like, I mean, we've all heard nudges, we've all heard, but for her to just answer and like, not just, but just open the floodgates and answer that call was, it's inspirational.
Very inspirational. I think sometimes, we talk about fear. She talked about that,
that
horrible darkness that came over her and that she never, wants to feel like that again. And I think too, like sometimes fear, we don't realize how much it prevents us from hearing God, from, allowing him to penetrate our hearts and our minds and really saying, okay, Lord, is this Adora's will be done or your will be done? And just, spending that time and being close to the sacraments and going, okay, what do you want me to do next? And sometimes he'll tell us. And, defiant me, like I will say, we'll be like, really? That's what you want me to do? Well, no, I want to do this. Well, duh, it's not what I want to do, Lord. Yeah. Like you said in the Our Father. Yeah. Your will be done.
Yes, which is really hard. I think it's hard for all of us because we have in our mind what we want.
Right.
But really, Patrice, what you said about the stories that she reflected on were the 2 stories of her childhood and the importance of being witnesses. Did that, as a parent, did you think to yourself, oh my gosh, am I a witness enough to my own kids?
I did, because a couple of weeks ago at Mass, I was praying and my husband's always like, are you okay? Because like sometimes I'll just like bow and he's like, are you crying? I'm like, no, I'm just praying. Yeah. And so then, I was praying after receiving communion and I looked over and my daughter was imitating me, 3 years old. 3 years old, and she was like on the kneeler and she was like, peeking at me, like over, but just make sure am I doing what mommy's doing? And I was like, I almost cried. And then we pray before every meal, and so my 18-month-old will be like, and like go like this is as far as she can get to that, the sign of the cross, and then she holds hand like. Yeah. They're imitating, even in the smallest ways, but I can imagine you with, teenage and preteen children, how much they're watching everything you do.
And I think of as a parent, I think of my own dad and the witness he had in my life, and we all have that in our life. I know your grandmother, Adora, and I think about him all the time, and listening to her, I'm like, those moments do make a difference.
Yes, they do. The impact is forever.
And what you said, sometimes people will never read the Bible, but how you live your life is the Bible for them. It's a witness to God's teachings, to Christ's teachings.
Absolutely.
I loved learning more about the Divine Mercy, the Chaplet of Divine Mercy, and just Divine Mercy in general. I never knew all that about Divine Mercy Sunday. I never knew all the graces. Yes. I knew there were graces, but I didn't know that indulgence. Because I was just listening about the sharings of Our Lady of Fatima, that they heard, and the one that just stuck with me, and I remember just stopping, was what he said about, she asked, is so-and-so in heaven? And he said, yes. Is so-and-so in heaven? He said, she's in purgatory. And she'll be in purgatory for a really long time. And so it came to light that this person had a bunch of morality sins, basically. She died young. She died in 19 or 20, whoever she was asking about. Sure. And I was like, and she's going to be in purgatory until the end of time. And I was like, so she died at 19, and she's going to be in purgatory. How long am I going to be in purgatory? And then hearing that on Divine Mercy Sunday, all of that could go away.
Yes.
And imagine how much more.
Talk about the mercy of our Father. That he just wants all of his children with him, and he wants to give us every single opportunity for us to get there. The confessional, Divine Mercy Sunday. It's like our kids. You know what? No matter how many times they mess up, they're our children. We love them. We want them with us. We want them, to be close to God. We will never give up on them till our dying breath.
Yeah, and that's when I fully understood the importance of praying for your enemy.
Yes.
When Jesus says, well, how hard is it to pray for the people that are good to you? It's pray for your enemy, because and I just said this to somebody the other day who's much older than me, and she was saying this about somebody, and she was putting somebody down, and I said, you should pray for him. And she goes, why would I pray for him? I go, because Jesus wants to save his soul too.
Right.
I said, you're praying for him for Jesus. Right. Not, you know what I mean? Forget him out of the way. It's for Jesus to save that guy's soul.
Yeah. Right.
And, and that really became, when I understood Divine Mercy Sunday, I understood why we need to pray for our enemies.
Right.
Because God wants to save everybody.
Right.
He wants his children all back.
And also to know, I think there's importance to recognize that hell is real.
Oh, yes.
I think a lot of us live our lives thinking like, oh, well, we're not all going to go to heaven. Yeah. And what isn't just granted to us because God loves us.
Yeah.
And then I was listening to a homily actually by our soon-to-be Deacon Perrin, and he said, everyone that's in hell chose to be in hell. And they chose to be in hell by their actions or their inaction.
So. It's the eternal separation from God. And none of us, ever want to even think about that. And so I know, as much as we try to be, good people, that you can just never have enough of mercy. You can never have enough of the sacraments. if I could have a priest outside my kitchen window where I do the dishes every night, I'd be confessing every night. Sometimes I drive out of the church and somebody's driving like a maniac.
I've confessed at a Panera.
I'm telling you, I've confessed at a stadium.
Yeah, I saw Father Andrew one time at a Panera, and I said, I need confession. He goes, okay, sit here. and then he was so funny. He goes, keep your voice down. There's people here that might know you.
But also on that note, like we're all obviously a little, at a certain pace in our faith life where we do want to confess at the, the sink or at the restaurant. But when Catherine shared that, when she's praying with people and she can tell when they've been away from the sacraments.
Yes, wow, that really.
She hits a wall. And I think we've all been at those places in our faith life too, where we are far from the sacraments. We can blame it on, we're busy, or what really comes down to is it's this sin, and it becomes this like cycle of sin. And so to encourage our viewers out there too, that don't stay away from the sacraments. Don't be afraid to go back, no matter how long it's been. Maybe you haven't been to Mass in a couple years, or confession and even longer.
Yeah.
We have people all the time. We just had our recent spiritual festival or retreats, and they haven't been to confession in a decade or more. Those are the most powerful confessions. The priest loves to hear those.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And reach out to people that are in a dark place. Sometimes they're not going to go to church. Yeah. You be the one to reach out to them, because like she said, no matter how dark the situation, we have hope in Christ. And you know what? Sometimes they just need one of us to say, you know what, sweetheart, is everything okay? Yeah. You know what, can I talk with you? That whole journey of accompaniment, that's part of mercy too. He sent his only son to accompany us, and it's
and pray for people. I mean, St. Augustine's mom prayed for him for 20 years.
Yeah, don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
Yeah.
What a powerful message she
is, and she's a powerful story, a powerful testimony. And going back to what you just said, Patrice, that really hit me when she said the wall goes up and the pouring of the sacrament. And the fact that God gives her that grace to see that. Yeah. And she can say to them, I don't think you've been going, you need to go to confession. You need to take communion. You need to do these things. And
that those could all be barriers to being healed.
Yeah.
Because that blackness of fear she was talking about, or even a physical healing that we're in need of, we're never going to be able to get to it if we're blocking ourselves off from the sacraments.
It's so important to have the heart healed, because without that, we can't let God penetrate. So very important.
Yeah, I just hope everybody kind of reads her book and knows her testimony. It really it's amazing how much you think you know, and then you meet someone like Catherine, like, wow, I really don't know.
Yes.
You think you're like, we'll never live long enough, you guys, to know everything God wants us.
Are you
nobody,
kidding?
will not know till we get to heaven. And so these are all the people that God brings in our lives to move us closer to Him. And I just think her story is so profound, and not everybody has to have that almost death experience.
Of course.
Of course. She was literally on her deathbed. Yeah. And
it was cute when she told the doctor, I'm healed. And he was like, yeah, okay, you must have lost your mind. And she's like, no, I'm healed.
I wanted to ask her, and we'll have to ask her obviously off the show, of what happened to that doctor?
No, I definitely thought of that.
Yeah, I want to
know,
like, what happened? Was he a Catholic at all?
Was he a
believer?
Did he
conversion? Right.
Yeah.
And the other cute part was how her mom started pinning all the medals all over her. I can imagine like our moms and grandmas doing that,
That's such an ethnic Italian thing.
Yeah, the only difference is rice and pasta, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So true.
Well, it's been a wonderful show here with Catherine, and check out the Divine Mercy Center and check out her book, A Call to Trust. But before we let our viewers go, we always leave them with our pledge. So stay with us.
I pledge to pray the Chaplet of Divine Mercy. I pledge to ask for God's will for me and to wait and listen and act. I pledge to ask for the Holy Spirit to touch my heart and mind.